The Elon Trump breakup has been ugly. It started with, and this is really interesting. I'm so glad I'm talking to you about this because there's a lot wrong with Musk's criticism of the bill, but it's not that the bill is good. It's just that what he really wants, Musk, at least as articulated from Doge land, is he wants bigger cuts. He wants cuts to social spending that are even more gargantuan. He wants a lot. That's his problem. But be that as it may, we'll leave it to the side, Michael. It started with his criticism of this, as it's called, big beautiful bill. You know, this huge bill that they're trying to squire through the Senate. And Albert, play for Michael, if you would please, a bit of what was being stated in the Oval as Trump was initially greeted with this news that Musk was critical of the bill and what was in the bill. Go ahead.
The criticism that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, regarding Elon Musk and your big, beautiful bill, what's your reaction to that? Do you think it in any way hurts passage in the Senate, which, of course, what is you're seeking?
Well, look, you know, I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. It's the biggest cut in the history of our country. We've never cut. It's about 1.6 trillion in cuts. It's the biggest tax cut. You would say, people's taxes will go way down, but it's the biggest tax cut in history. It's we are doing things in that bill that are unbelievable. And when you look at what we're doing for small businesses, for people, for middle-income people, all of the things that we're doing, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And, you know, Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and, you know, which was a lot of money for electric vehicles. And, you know, they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles, and they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy. And, you know, Elon knew this from the beginning. He knew it for a long time ago. That's been, I would say, JD, that hasn't changed. That's been right from the beginning, Mr. Secretary. That hasn't changed at all, right from the beginning. But I know that it disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA. And I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges. And one of the privileges, we don't have to appoint a Democrat. NASA is very important. We have great people. General Kane is going to be picking somebody with our, we'll be checking him out and seeing, but he wanted that person, a certain person, and we said no. And, you know, I can understand why he's upset. Remember, he was here for a long time. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk. And even with the black eye, I said, do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup. But he said, no, I don't think so, which is interesting and very nice. He wants to be who he is. So you could make that statement, too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the best thing. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything. And I am right about the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it a great, big, beautiful bill because that's what it is. He knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody. And he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Well, he was right about the personally part. It did get personal after this. Look, he's a lot.
You know, Merz is thinking sitting there too, the Chancellor of Germany.
Oh my God, yeah. Unbelievable! And we addressed the D-Day remarks in the first. So I was going to circle back around to it toward the end of our conversation, but just on this, give me your take on this, Michael. Again, that was the beginning of this feud. It got a lot uglier.
Well, Donald Trump loves this, right? I mean, he loves the this part of governance, which is the petty personal stuff. It's what got him there, right? I mean, this is The Apprentice live. This is all of what, how President Trump was invented. He was invented on a reality show, and this is when he gets to go back into that character and do those things again. He loves it. He loves not talking about policy because he doesn't know policy. He speaks in vagaries when he talks about policy, but when he gets to do this kind of thing, pitting him against somebody else, talking about how good he was and how much he helped him. That's what he finished with there. How much I helped Elon. One could argue that the gazillions of dollars that Elon Musk put into the election last year helped Donald Trump. I'm not saying he wouldn't have won without it, but I would say that there were a couple of states that were put in play by Musk. I don't know what Trump has done to help Musk other than agree to call the department Doge, because Musk is selling a Doge coin. That's the name of his meme coin. So to me, that's helpful, right? It's an advertisement every time you say the word Doge. But
by the way, just on that, quick follow up. Many in the chat agree with you that sort of Musk bought the presidency for Trump, but I'm sort of with you. I'm not sure that Trump wouldn't have won anyway, but
it doesn't matter. Elon helped him more than he helped.
But on the on what Trump did for him, I'd say he can't say this part out loud, but I made the point in the first hour that he gave the keys to the kingdom to Doge, and he let Musk and all his Dogettes go in there and scrape government databases for a lot of information about Americans and a lot of information about payments and such. And he went first after those government agencies that, of course, had regulatory business. That is to say, were giving Musk a hard time. Everything from the IRS to EPA to USAID. They actually did that in reverse order. He went first after USAID, but these were problems for Musk. They were on his back. So he essentially just canceled those agencies and those people out, and all of that went away. Now, again, Trump can't say that, but that's what he really
fair.
did for him.
And you're right. And Trump would say that if he knew that, if he really could relate to that in a way that he could articulate it. I believe he would say it. He's not shy about saying things. Even because he knows that nothing matters in a way. So saying that in 1978 would have been a terrible thing to do in 1984 and 1993. But now saying it with him at the helm, it doesn't really matter what he says. So I think he would say it. And I think you're right. I didn't want to gloss over that, but because it's very true. But the point is that this is really about the show of the presidency more than it is about the presidency. Also, Elon Musk, whether he helped Donald Trump or not, or whether Trump would acknowledge it, Elon Musk's money is very important to Republicans, or became so all of a sudden. There are Republicans in the Senate who are going to be running for re-election again. They're better off listening in some ways to what Elon Musk says about this bill than what President Trump says about it. And that's going to matter in a way, because this bill is going to go before the Senate. It's going to be chopped to pieces and be sent back to the House, and the House isn't going to like what the Senate does. This has political ramifications for Trump in a way that, it continues the conversation about money poisoning our politics. But Elon Musk has a lot of money.
Yeah, and I want to get to some of the details again with the Epstein Files and calling for the impeachment and all this sort of thing. But just to follow up on what you've said, because I think this really is interesting, the leverage that Musk has over people other than Trump and other than is significant because of his power to primary those who are sitting in the Senate now, to those who might be vulnerable to a primary, to in all of these ways that you've mentioned. His money can matter in this flawed political system. I wonder also then, Michael, if his calling out of the bill, again, most Americans, I don't know to what extent, anybody really focuses on the particulars of the bill. As it turns out, most of the people who voted on the bill in the House didn't focus on the particulars. I mean, you have, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to her credit, I suppose, admits that she didn't read it, but if he puts enough of a stink, but she loved it, right? But if he puts enough of a stink or a question mark on this bill, just based on the fact that he's calling it bloated and pork-filled, et cetera, doesn't that maybe hurt its chances?
Oh, not maybe. I think that hurts its chances. Look, politicians are a funny bunch. In the in the best reading of them, and I've said over and over, I like most of them. I think most of them that I've come into contact with are public servants with huge egos, but a lot of them aren't, and that's changed a lot too. They've become caricatures of themselves, and they've used politics as a means of doing other things in life. But that's an argument for another time, or a conversation for another time. The point is that these people look down the road and they look at what is best for them, and that's the ego part of it. And if the richest man in the world, I believe he still is, if he's the richest man in the world, they help him a lot more than a lame, they help a member of Congress a lot more than a lame duck president does. And that's what Trump is, and he certainly will be at the beginning of 2027. That as much as they align themselves with him, and as much as they want the MAGA people to stick around when they next go to stand for re-election, he's not going to be the president anymore. Donald Trump out of office and Donald Trump in off elections has proven that he is not as effective. When he's on the ballot, it helps a lot. He has coattails, but he doesn't really in off-year elections to a great extent anyway. And that's what these people look at. So yes, I think absolutely it's going to impact the votes. It's going to make it easier for someone who is on the fence or is looking at the polling in their state and to vote against this or to make big changes to it.
This is interesting because we're kind of talking about penciling out the politics of it and, who's a winner, who's a loser, et cetera. And Inlays says Musk lost financially and reputationally, while Trump got rich and a better reputation. Musk lost so far, but it won't end that way. It is true that Musk in polling polled, I think, lower than even the Democrats, who are polling in like the high 20s.
No, it's true. That's
horribly.
a very, very astute comment. And the other part of that is with his polling is that when you look at who Musk appealed to, there were a lot of progressives, a lot of environmentalists, a lot of people think great electric cars. This is somebody, I'm sure you, Mark, thought that at one time about Elon Musk. He's a little weird. He got high on Joe Rogan. He speaks kind of funny, but man, is he smart. And look what he's doing to the environment and revolutionizing things. So a lot of those people are the people who got angriest when he changed sides. So the polling is going to reflect deep unpopularity because the people who are participating in those polls are people that would have been in his back pocket anyway.
That's interesting. That really is interesting. And, you remind me that I think Musk is an opportunist. I think if Biden and the Democrats had engaged Musk more positively, he would have gone with them. I think he saw that it was just the opposite, that the Democrats and the Democratic administration, I just mentioned all these government agencies that were going after him from a regulatory standpoint, had turned their back on him, or even worse. And so he felt in Trump, I feel like this is a big part of it.
Maybe
an opportunity.
Yeah, but he's an opportunist. He's also an excellent businessman, and I think that he'd gotten all that he needed to get out of one party, and going the other way with all of the the crypto people that were supporting the Republican Party, when he saw what that could do to his wealth with his coin and all of that, whatever share he has of that Dogecoin, he thought, okay, this is, to your point, an opportunity, but I'm also a businessman, and this is good business for me for the moment.
Elon Musk says Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files, and, quote, that is the real reason they have not been made public. He posted that. He also posted a call for Donald Trump's impeachment.
Yeah. Well, he thought that impeaching Trump would, start getting other people back into the fold. Maybe he got tired of those bumper stickers on the back of Teslas that sort of tried to get people to distance themselves from Elon. So there could be that. But the Epstein Files stuff is certainly salacious and will get people interested again.
Yes, for that reason, because it's salacious. That's exactly it. And Pam Bondi got a letter from strategic Congress people, a bunch of Democratic leadership, that is saying, hey, is that true? Is there stuff in there on the president who, is mentioned by Musk? So,
and that will change a lot. Will have, if the Democrats win the House, a lot of the oversight will be pointed toward the Epstein stuff. I don't know how big the legs are that Epstein has, and I'm just not certain that it'll matter, but it may. And that's one of the reasons Republicans really want to keep the House.
Trump says Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he was just crazy. We just he posted that, and he also kind of referenced it in his remarks that we just played for you. Musk did end his time working for the federal government, and that's sort of what was that, like the the public exit interview, where he gives him kind of a key to the government and everything. That seemed to be going well, but again, the idea somehow that Trump, I was talking about this in the first hour, Michael, that Trump could pull government contracts, which he's threatened to do. This would suggest sort of that the leverage goes to Trump. I'm just talking about the practical leverage. Okay,
well, leverage always goes to the president at the end of the day, but it's there are many hours till you get to the end of the day, and it makes it very, very difficult for the president, for the administration, when you have the richest man in the world at you in this way constantly, and someone who has influence over both houses of Congress.
And someone who has practical relationships with the U.S. government, not the least of which he mentions this, the SpaceX vehicle that he could decommission and essentially strand your astronauts up in the International Space Station. Musk mentioned this. There's a relationship here, as uncomfortable as it may be, that definitely involves Elon Musk. His Starlink is dominant. And as you know, he shoehorned Starlink in a bigger way into government contracts. Just in his first few months in government, he was able to do that with so many government programs that he was able to kind of bump to the side and allow him and his Starlink folks to be the contractors of record on it.
Yeah. And the other thing is that Elon has allies now, and he has allies because he's the richest man in the world. He has allies within the administration. He has allies in Congress. He has allies in the talk world, from, Stephen Bannon to Stephen Miller. And so what happens to those people and what they're sort of free to say and free to do now is going to be interesting too. And will that sway others in Congress? And so Elon built up a lot of power, with his money, but with his access. And now he's got it, and it's not gone just because he and the president are having a rift. It might even be more pronounced because he doesn't have to be as adherent to what the president's doing. I
want to get to some other stuff, but before I do, this Trevor Starr in Hollywood says, breaking fake news, Dr. Phil has agreed to foster peace talks between Trump and Musk. Oh, isn't that? Yeah, exactly. Musk has 6 times the wealth of the Koch brothers at their height in the aughts. Sadly, Musk will always be a threat to fund primaries in either party, says Depressed Canadian. Thanks for the $10 super chat. I want to get Albert, if you could please, play the Bannon video. Bannon, you mentioned Bannon, and that's what made me think of the fact that we really ought to hear from Bannon, because he's going to war. And, he always loves going to war. He feels like, what they said about George Patton, like he was happiest when, he was in a battle of some kind. And boy, he has really opened the blowtorch on Elon Musk. He's encouraging Trump to do everything from nationalize Musk's business, space business, to deport Musk. Play a little bit of it, if you would, please, Albert.
Where I said, hey, he's an agent of influence of the Chinese Communist Party because of his financial relationship in Tesla. That should be fully investigated. President Trump is a bull. Elon Musk is a baby calf, okay? And now it's time for the good of the country, the republic. Forget MAGA and the Republican Party. This is a national security issue now. It's raised to the level of national security issue of a very unstable individual that's out saying very, I think, dangerous things about the President of the United States. And he has to be investigated, should be investigated immediately. And all contracts associated, all government contracts should be immediately suspended.
By the way, do they play that music under his podcast all the time? I don't watch it regularly.
I don't know. It looked like former Congressman Dave Bratt, the guy who beat Eric Cantor in an upset primary in Virginia a while back on the left there. And I don't know if it was, but it looked like him, which is amazing that some of the people that were sort of legitimate conservatives, whether you liked them or presumably didn't, they're now aligning themselves with the crazy. It's It's amazing.
So tell me, I mean, from a practical standpoint, I mean, you know, Trump's not going to seize SpaceX, I don't think, or
No,
nationalize
no,
SpaceX.
I don't think so. But very truly, I think anything that distracts him is probably productive in its own way because it keeps him out of the things that matter dearly. Uh, we know that he's not going to treat them the way that most Americans want him to. And most people who don't want him to, if they looked at it a little bit, would realize that they want him to stay away as well, but they don't. They're just part of that cult. I think that these sorts of things are good for Donald Trump. It keeps him out of the fray. It gets him into a different fray. It's a distraction. I don't think that's bad.
CC Ryder says Ro Khanna and other weak Democrats are advocating for talks with Musk, with zero renouncing of his Nazi white nationalist views and platforming Nazis. Come on, Democrats, don't compromise on values.
I mean, it's a good point, but talks mean that you can talk to him about that too, right? If you don't engage him on that, I'm not saying that that's why they want to talk to him, because I'm not an idiot. I know they want to talk to him about getting his money back involved in the Democratic Party, but to do it without some kind of conversation about it, and about the people he's supported in Europe, the people he's supported in different races from Germany. Merz was in the White House today, to Hungary, to the Netherlands, now collapsing government, and what he's going to do, what he's advocating for there. I mean, there's real reasons to want to distance yourself from this guy. That said, politics is about money until it isn't. And if you can get him in there and you can say you've got to change on this, or you've got to explain it.
Jim Eaton says, I think SpaceX should be seized. We should never give projects like space to private companies. There's a lot. I would have liked to have seen a private public, at minimum, a private public partnership. So I think there's some truth to that. But let me just, because of that was mentioned, this is huge, Michael, what's happening at NASA. They are cutting the NASA budget by 30%. NASA scientists are in a state of limbo. A lot of the offices that NASA scientists work out of have been closed, and career specialists I'm seeing now in this report are now working remotely, awaiting details and even more unsure about their future at many of these labs that they were kicked out of. So if they close these labs for good, it could jeopardize the value and the country's leadership role in global climate science, many say. But anything with climate, as you know, is on the outs with this administration. But NASA is so much. It's space, it's climate, it's science, it's Earth in so many different ways as it is studied by these brilliant minds. And so apparently NASA is really in something of a free fall.
Yeah, it is. I mean, NASA is a whole different conversation, because there were a slew of Democrats over time that were sort of kept quiet by Bill Nelson in the Senate, who thought that NASA was, was overrun with cost, and it wasn't cost effective, and that would be a good place to start, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a different conversation. But when you see who has the interests in cutting NASA and making space private, you look at Jeff Bezos and you look at Elon Musk, and then you look at who was part of that administration. So a lot of this stuff, you don't really have to pull back the curtains too far to see what's going on with that. And look, so many departments have been cut: the CDC, the IRS, NASA, all the entire alphabet of government agencies have been cut, and you start to see why when you look at who's involved in it. And I agree. I mean, it's all abhorrent, right? It's all terrible the way that they went in there with this slash and burn mentality, and NASA, like others, is a victim of that.
So the last thing I wanted to address with you is what's happening with the deportations and with Trump's latest pronouncements about blocking the border. And, the immigration problem is so multifaceted. I mean, the southern border is just a small part of it. But his travel ban that goes into effect on Monday is something that hasn't gotten a lot of high-profile blowback. It's he's blocking the entrance into America from a handful. What is it? 17 different countries.
Yeah.
And and as I say, it's not receiving much of. I don't think it's getting much high profile blowback.
It isn't. Well, it's a lot more precise, in fairness, than when he was in his first term and he called it a Muslim ban, right? And just it was so blatant and clear. And this time around, I mean, I'm not obviously defending him. This time around, though, his administration did it in a much more precise way to many countries who a lot of Americans don't realize are big parts of what they determine to be the immigration problem. Places like Chad, right? We don't typically know a lot of Chadians, so when you hear that, you think, oh, okay, it's more precise. It's not all Muslims. But then when you go to Haiti, right, which is one of the problem zones of our hemisphere, and you're saying that there is a ban on Haitians coming in, I mean, then you're starting to hit closer to home. There are massive Haitian communities in this country. It is run by gangs, quite literally. I mean, it is a government that is run by gangs. So getting people out of there, it should be an American, it's an American tenet to get people and save them from what's going on there, the rape, the crime, the extortion, all of it. And so it's not getting the attention, but it's certainly, when you talk about this border stuff, it does work for the administration. So
Right,
it definitely changes the channel. Well, things are going poorly on the Hill. My bromance is over with Elon. Let's talk about deportation and get everybody happy again.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I was hinting at, even with the question, that it's a political winner for them because it deals with a lot of specifics that people really aren't aware of, and a lot of countries that people, can't even pronounce. And so for that reason,
look, Chad is easy.
Yeah, Chad's one of the easier ones. Eritrea, I would think of might be hard. I don't even know if some people say Eritrea.
I think they say Eritrea.
Yeah. So there you go. So Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea. These are all places that Americans, I think, are not really relevant to their lives. And so I think that's the reason you're not getting a lot of blowback, right, Michael? Because again, from a political standpoint, it's like, what are you doing?
Right. And again, one of Trump's stock and trades is flooding the zone. Just give you a bunch of stuff and you can't digest all of it. So it's like this big buffet. You take one thing and you go back to your table. And that's one of the things that this administration has done from the very beginning in January.
Your thoughts, lastly, on the international student targeting. He seems to really be going after international students, certainly at Harvard, right?
Yeah.
But
Across
the board.
That's that with Harvard. It is across the board, but it's also something that's part when they're talking about the immigration stuff. It's the stuff that's resonating least, right? So when it's someone and they're in trouble, it's much more psychologically different, right? Oh, this person's my classmate. I'm opposed to this. He should not be sent back. She should not be sent back. But if it's sort of ambiguously these people from Chad who are not being let in, well, that's okay. And if the border's flooded, that's okay. We have too many people here. But as soon as it hits home, right? It's like, what do they say? We all hate lawyers till we need one. And that's kind of the thing with immigration. It's when it hits home and when you're exposed to people who are immigrants and successful and lovely and all of that and have families and hardworking, that it changes the dialogue.
Well, I mean, it's so interesting that you point to this stuff because I think, as we've said, it politically doesn't land. And yet, as you've suggested earlier in our conversation, the salacious nature of the Epstein stuff, that does land. So, in terms of importance, you can tell me what's more important, but I think that politically important is what we've talked about, which is if you could really demonstrate that Trump is a part of this whole Epstein machine, it would be politically damaging, I think, to Trump. But
it would be. I don't hold your breath just yet. Democrats don't have the power investigation in the House,
right? So that can be buried.
They're the only ones. They're the only ones.
In 2 years, who knows what will. Right.
Who knows what will happen? We have.
Hi, it's
48
Mark,
seconds.
and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped. And please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.